Hello, VETAHEADers. How you guys doing? Dr. Proença here. Another live event, another Darlings, where I share my favorite products or service related to zoo med or exotic animal medicine that I've been using either for the past month or for life as this one has been. How you guys doing? Dr. Proença here, another VETAHEAD Darlings. If you think one of your friends, colleagues, technicians, veterinary students could benefit from this, send the link to this live because I will share with you something super cool that I've been using for years. Honestly, since I've been practicing in the United States, I've been using this. So many years. Let me adjust my camera here. Ooh, we are drunk, sorry. Sorry guys, just adjusting the camera very quick. How you guys doing? Where you guys speaking from? Where you guys logging in from? Where you guys at in the world? The words are not coming out of my mouth today, huh? I am United States. I am in San Diego, but I am really curious to know where you guys are from. We're gonna start in a few moments, just waiting for the rest of you guys to join another Darlings. Okay, if you have seen any of the previous Darlings, you know that those are not sponsored, so I make no money with this, but I just like to share with you things that really help me practice, that make my day-to-day easier, practice exotic animal medicine or zoo med, and I wanna share them with you. And one really good thing that we have changed since last time is now our VETAHEAD Darlings, not only they stay on our Instagram so you can see it, the recorded, they always stay on our YouTube channel. Have you guys seen our YouTube channel, the VETAHEAD? So now our lives stay there, all these videos stay there. So if you miss them, you can go there and watch it and send to your friends. So today, as usual, I have a really good, this time is going to be a really good service to share with you. Again, is a service I've been using since I've been practicing in the United States for the longest time. Actually, I have a story to tell you about this, but it is, and I know probably you all struggle trying to find, for example, a clinical pathology lab that will do tests for our zoo med or exotic animals, right? First of all, I always had difficulty finding a lab that will be willing to do them, to test these, birds, reptiles. Usually they feel like they are not equipped to do. And second, also a lab that will do it correctly. And that's what I want to touch base with you guys today. It's not just about doing it, it's about doing it correctly. Today, of course, I'm trying to do something different and being outside with you guys because I'm in sunny California. But of course, there are these external sounds. But it's so nice to see nature. So I hope they don't interfere too much with you listening. And if they do, let us know in the comments so we don't do them outside anymore. As I was saying, I always had difficulties finding a lab that was reputable and that I could trust the results. And I will touch base with you why. But this one I found and I really like to use. We have many options in the United States. This is the one I will definitely recommend, hence what I'm doing here. And I brought my computers to show. Oh, first of all, look how cool is my new computer cover. Oh my God, look at this. Amazon, baby. Isn't that cool? I didn't put my name here. Look. Dr. Proença, no species left behind. How cool is that? Very cool, right? So as I was saying, hi, Cami, welcome. So as I was saying, guys, I want to share with you this lab, okay? So that's the University of Miami. Okay, see here. Avian Wildlife Laboratory, Comparative Pathology. So Cami is going to share with you guys the link. So you can see here, she's gonna put the link here, and I'm gonna go over a few details why I am recommending it, so you can also look the lab you're using if they're doing the same thing, okay? So this laboratory, of course, the name says is in Miami, Florida. It's associated with the University of Miami. And Dr. Carolyn Cray is the one heading this lab. And I have had the honor to meet her in person. And I also have a lot of back and forth conversations with her when I have any questions. So Number one, it is a lab that practice evidence-based medicine. So not only they use data that has been published to give the reference ranges for our normals, okay? They also publish a lot. Dr. Carolyn Cray is a renowned scientist. She publishes a lot, especially in the electrophoresis area, but also with other tests. So I think number one, guys, is knowing if the lab, because the labs tend to send us the results with the reference ranges, right? So it's to know if we can trust those reference ranges, because a lot of labs will do an average. So for example, you send a sample, I send a sample, you know, Mary sends a sample, and they accumulate all the samples from rabbits, for example, and they then do an average, so the results, and then they do an average of the results. But hey, we don't know if the rabbit I send the sample is sick or is not sick, has an infectious disease or not. So it becomes really dicey, right? If the result, if the average that they provide us are not based on real evidence-based data. It can't just be a poll of the results they have, right? To actually establish normals for a species, it's really complicated and requires a lot of steps to be followed, which makes a lot of sense, right? We can't just average the results of that population without knowing if that population is even the same species, were they all healthy, the same age, etc., right? Who is to say that I'm sending a sample saying that is a blue-fronted Amazon, but if I identify that bird wrong and is actually, I don't know, like a conure, you know, and then we now looping this animal in a group that it doesn't even belong. So that's number one, is see where they're getting their references from, right? Of course, there's a solution to that, is if you don't know, or if they are doing what I just exemplified, getting a pool of the samples, the results that are sent to them, then you can, of course, you can research your own references, right? You can use, for example, the Zorkanen formulary or a book or something to give, or papers, which is better, to look at reference ranges. But that's an added step for you as a clinician that really we don't need, right? So that's number one. Number two, you want a lab that can give you results really fast, right? So I would say a turnover of 24 hours, 40 hours max. And they really deliver, guys. They really deliver. They do, of course, there are some tests, like serological tests, that they only run, like any other lab, they will run all of them once a week, or, you know, they take a little bit longer because it's a multi-step process. But of course, you want to make sure that from the turnover time, from the time you send the sample to actually getting the results is very quick. And definitely they deliver, like I am in California, they are in Miami, in Florida, and then within 24 hours, I'm talking about the most common tests, such as like CBC, biochemistry, definitely come within 24 hours, and I love it. They have a portal that you can see the results right away. They also email the results to you. So I think another thing you want to look is that, right? What is the turnover of that lab? Other point, very important, do they offer shipping? Or do you need to charge extra for shipping? Now, not that that is a problem, because you can always charge the client for the shipping, which we do a lot. But University of Miami, as for today, it might change in the future. So you're looking at this in February 2024. If you have 2 samples or more, they do offer free FedEx. So I think that's an added bonus, not necessarily a requirement, but an added bonus. They also send you, and this is very standard in the United States, but you want to make sure they send you the little vials, the lab, like the sample vials that you need to collect your samples. So also making sure that you have a lab that has the micro tubes, right? The micro EDTA tubes, the micro heparin tubes, the micro serology tubes, and the lab will send those to you. I know here in the United States, kind of standard for the lab to provide all of those to you, but I have ran into situations where the lab either doesn't provide it, or does not have the microtubes, and you definitely want the lab to have the microtubes. So that's another thing to consider. You also want to make sure they are accessible. You also want to make sure that if you have a question, you can talk to a human, and that they have a very self-explanatory website. Because guess what? You're gonna have questions about how much blood do I need? What type of sample? Is it serum? Is it plasma? Is it total blood? Anticoagulant? Which one do I need to use? Etc. etc. So you want to make sure that you can either look this information easily on the website, which I will show it to you right here on their website. And you also want to make sure that if you have questions, that you have a human to talk to. I'll give you an example. I was doing like blood work on this cockatiel, and I wanted to do CBC biochemistry, but I also wanted to do a chlamydia panel, sorry. And they have here the amount of blood, but obviously the cockatiel was small and I could only collect so much blood safely. So what I did was I hopped on the phone and I called to see, hey, it says here that you need, and I'm making this up, okay? It says here that you need 0.3 mLs of plasma for this test, but I can't collect enough. How much do you actually need? Because we know the lab will tell you they need more than they actually need, because they're accounting for spillage, for, many things, right? They want to make sure that they're going to have enough. So I got with the human on the phone very quickly, and the person was able to tell me exactly by the microliter. I explained the situation, and that was very nice. So you want to make sure you have someone to talk to, right? Because I can promise you're gonna have a lot of questions. Another example, which I'm probably getting ahead of here, but for reptiles, for instance, we still don't know which one is the anticoagulant of choice. For a lot of species, we have studies in iguanas showing that a DTA is the best anticoagulant for CBC, for example, not heparin. We know box turtles is the same. We know ball pythons are the same. So we need to use a DTA, not heparin for a CBC. But guess what? We don't know for the other species. So I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I choose my anticoagulant? So I got on the phone, called the University of Miami. I didn't even, of course I introduced myself, but not like they talked to me because of who I am at that time, that was years ago. And Carolyn, guess what? Dr. Carolyn Clay got on the phone with me, and we were brainstorming a way to solve this problem. So I said, okay, how about, I don't know whose idea was it, but we came to the consensus that size per meeting of the patient, I would send for CBC of reptiles, I would send 2 vials, one with ADTA, whole blood and ADTA, the other one with heparin. And when they get to the lab, they would run a PCV on the 2 samples, and they would do the CBC on the sample that had the highest PCV, which makes a lot of sense, guys, because, if the sample with the higher PCV is the sample that is going to have less hemolysis, right? So this is the type of thing that you want to make sure the lab is willing to do. I cannot tell you how many times I call a lab and they like very rigid, not flexible. They go like, nope, that's the system. I can't change it. Well, we know that for our animals, a lot of it has to be changed, right? So all of those things we need to take in consideration. And if you guys have any questions, let me know here. It's supposed to be very interactive, so feel free to ask questions. Okay, so last, in terms of these general things, I'm here on their website, right? And then they have listed all the tests they have, okay? So here you see all the tests they have, and what I like it, they have the MELs, the volume of the sample you need, the type, green top, in this case is heparin, and they say the price. So the test they have, the sample they need, and the price they charge you. So then you can decide how much you want to charge the client. But it's very obvious, it's right there on your face. It makes it very easy for you to make decisions when you're practicing, because the last thing you want is having to fetch this information on the spot when you're recommending this to the client. So usually I will have this printed, and we already, I don't know how you guys price your lab at your practice. I don't know if you price it more, if you charge anything, which would not be wrong at all, guys. Charging on top of the price that the lab gives you, it is actually standard because you are providing a service. One, you're providing a service to collect the blood. Two, you're providing a service to interpret the results, which is your brain, and to relay them to the owner, and based on those results, make recommendations for treatments or more diagnostics and so forth. So my recommendation to you is that you do add a price on the lab. Now, how much that's gonna be, it depends on your market, on your practice. But an example I'm making up here. For example, the Aspergillus panel here, they charge us $105. Some people double it, they charge $200. This $100, this price is for your service. You're not stealing from the owner, it's from your service to know how to interpret that, how to relay this information to the owner, what you're gonna do after that, the treatments that are gonna be done after that. You're gonna prescribe drugs probably, so it's your time. Okay, again, this is just an example. It will really depend on the market. I don't know how it's a market in your area. Now, I find it, I literally have this list printed because it just first makes my life very easy, especially to see what sample they need and how much blood or plasma or serum they need for that. Or if they need, for example, a swab, sterile swab, depending on what I'm doing. Oh, I have one more detail about this. You also want to make sure the lab is doing stuff in-house, because a lot of big laboratories in the United States, they kind of serve as a hub, and they don't do tests in-house, but they send to other labs, right? I usually tend to go with the lab of source. So obviously I use different labs for different things, but for example, I'm not gonna send it so there's a big lab in the United States, a chain, and they receive the sample and they send to Miami to be done, and then they get the results from Miami and they relay the results to you. So I see a few problems with that. One, they're obviously charging on top of it, right? Because they are being kind of a courier system. They are receiving the sample, they are shipping it, so they are putting their price on top of it. And it's an unnecessary price. It's like a third party, you don't need that. Second is delaying the sample from getting to the lab where the samples are gonna be actually processed. So I would say that another reason I like University of Miami is because all these tests they offer, the majority of it they do in-house. Some of it, like for example, the chlamydia panel, part of it is done at University of Georgia. Why don't I send it directly to University of Georgia? Because University of Georgia will also send part of it to Miami. They do it paired, right? So in that case, it doesn't matter if I send to Miami or if I send to Georgia. They are gonna send to one another part of the test. So it doesn't really, it's a wash at the end. And the test that they don't, I am not familiar, and I can't really say because I haven't tried every single test in University of Miami, but the ones I send to University of Miami are all done in-house. So hence another reason why I do that, right? How are you guys doing with the labs in your area? How are you guys? I'm gonna drink a little bit of water here while you tell me. I always struggled a lot with that, guys. I don't know about you, but finding a good resourceful lab, not an easy task, right? That's why I'm recommending. Now, few things I want you to be, now this is very, very important part of it, okay? Few things that I want you to really know how your lab is running the samples. So much for doing things outside. We can hear all those dogs, Amber, Dr. Amber, how you doing, my friend? I was just telling them I tried to come here to do an outdoor live, right? To be with nature. It's sunny, it's beautiful, but then the neighbor dogs are barking. But hey, Hi, Amber. So we were talking about a few things that you want to make sure. This is really important, guys. Okay, really important. A few things that you want to make sure the lab is doing. Okay. First of all, when we are sending CBC for birds and reptiles, you want to make sure that they are doing a manual count of the leukocytes. You do not want estimates, okay? You do not want estimates based on a slide, on a smear. We have multiple research studies looking into that and showing that there is no correlation between a manual count, which is the standard of care, and an estimate from the slide, from the smear, from the blood smear. That means that your blood smear, the estimate based on blood smear is not going to be accurate. Okay? So you need a lab that does manual count of leukocytes. And they don't want to do it, guys. Why? Because it is a manual thing. So adds time, right? And it's a pain in the ass to do, but adds time. Of course, for a trained technician, they do it very quickly. But for dogs and cats, they put it into automated machines. They're not even counting themselves. They put in the machine does the work. But for our species, the birds and reptiles, it needs to be done manually. And why is that? Because the erythrocytes, the red blood cells, are nucleated. If you put in the machine is gonna count it. I mix things up now, sorry. Because if you just do, we're gonna talk about red blood cells, but that's also a problem. But because if you do estimate counts based on the smear, it's not gonna be accurate. That means that perhaps you have an animal with leukocytosis or increased leukocyte count that on the estimate, on the smear, it's not gonna show. And then you're gonna be skewed on your recommendations or vice versa. That's why you really need manual count. So they need to dilute the blood on special dyes, put in the hemocytometer, and then count it, looking at the microscope, okay? So it's an added step, but it's the gold standard, okay? The Unipet method. So you wanna make sure your lab is doing that. They're not doing estimated blood counts, okay? Estimated white blood counts or leukocyte count. Now to what I was just saying, the red blood count. Oh my God, is that I struggle. Very few labs in the United States actually provide you with an erythrocyte count. Isn't that absurd? I'm saying that if you send a sample from a reptile or from a bird, they will not give you the red blood count. They won't give you. They will give you a PCV total solids, but not the red blood count. That's an absurd, guys. That is standard of care. How are you gonna know if an animal is anemic if you don't have the red blood count? Oh, Dr. Proença, just the PCV. Okay, let me give you a quick example. You have a severely dehydrated bird. The PCV is gonna be skewed high, right? So because it is severely dehydrated, the PCV is gonna be falsely elevated, okay? So say the PCV is 40%, which is considered normal, but that animal is 10% dehydrated, okay? So meaning that value, it's not real. Then when you hydrate the animal, that PCV goes to like 30, right? Which is low. It's anemic. Well, it depends on the species, I know. But just for the example here. If you had an erythrocyte count, you would know it with the first sample because the number of cells is not going to change based on the dehydration. But the percentage of the cells versus the plasma will. Because the plasma has liquid. If you dehydrate, you have less liquid. Therefore, you have percentage-wise, you're going to have less liquid. Percentage-wise, you're going to have a falsely elevated red blood count. But if you actually count the red cells, that's it, right? That's the value. It's not going to be falsely elevated. Do you know what I mean? And usually, when I get into an argument, and when I say argument, I don't mean a fight, I mean a respectful conversation. And I'm talking to a lab technician, the head of the lab, and they say, no, we don't need to do that for birds and reptiles. And I ask them, why not? If I say, if you can convince me that information is not important for a bird or a reptile, that means it's also not important for a dog. Oh no, are you kidding me? For a dog, we have to. What is the difference? Medically, that makes no sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you need an erythrocyte count to be able to accurately evaluate a CBC of a dog, it is the same for a bird. It is the same for a reptile. Medicine is medicine. And they usually go, oh, I never thought about that. They're like, oh, clinicians don't need it. I said, says who? Right? Says who? And we just get used to it because, again, like I said, and that's why I wanted to bring this lab as a favorite, as a VETAHEAD darling, because only few labs will do it, okay? So I want to do actually a disclaimer here. You need to request that when you submit a CBC to a University of Miami, it's not automatically that they will do an erythrocyte count. You need to request it, and they do charge more for it. It's not much. If I'm not mistaken, it's like $10. But again, don't take my word for it. But I know it's not much. And it makes sense because that count needs to be manual, okay? That's why the labs don't want to do it, because just like for the white blood count, for the red blood count, they need to do that count manually. And why is that? Because the red blood cells of birds and reptiles, they have a nuclei. They have nucleus, right? So they're nucleated. So if you run them into the machine, automatic machine like they do for dogs and cats, it will count as a white blood cell, as a leukocyte, not as an erythrocyte. Does it make sense? So again, that's why it needs to be manual. You want to make sure that the lab does it, okay? So you want to ask that for your lab. Perhaps your lab's already doing that, which is amazing, okay? Now, another thing that we want to make sure for birds and reptiles is that the protein, especially albumin, that they are using electrophoresis for that. Because we have, again, several studies, multiple studies showing that if they use the bromochromazole green method, that it will underestimate the albumin. And that's because birds and reptiles have pre-albumin, that dogs don't have it, cats don't have it, okay? So you want to make sure that the albumin level is being shown, is the methodology used to give that result is electrophoresis. And again, it needs to be a lab that does it, okay? So you need to make sure of it. Those are the main things that I can think about when it comes to, I'm talking about bio. Of course, we'll different tests, other things that you might need, but is in general for biochemistry and CBC. Those are the main items that I can remember at the top of my head. And if you remember something else, tell me here on the comments. Also, of course, majority of labs will do a manual count and also look at the smear for a differential count. So they will do a leukocyte count out manual, and they will look at the smear for the differential. That's for dogs and cats too, okay? And then you want to make sure, and that has nothing to do with the lab right now, but you want to make sure you always do a blood smear with fresh blood. So that means that once you collect that sample, you get a little drop, put on the slides, and make a blood smear without ADTA or heparin. Okay, so you want to make sure of that, because it's always better, because both of those will end up lysing or agglutinating the cells, and it makes it very difficult for the lab to interpret these results or even read the results. So we need to be aware of it. So those are a few things that I wanted to share with you, because choosing the lab, it can be a hassle. And again, that's why I like to send it to the University of Miami. Again, I'm going to show you guys their websites right here. But Camila is also going to put it there for you. University of Miami, Miller School of Medicine, Avian and Wildlife Laboratory. Okay. So that's it for me today, guys. I wanna thank you so much for being here with me. If you use this lab, let me know. And also if you have any comments about the things that we talked about, let me know in the comments. I would love to know that. Thank you so much for being with us. Again, one more thing I want to say, that's about, which is gonna be another darling coming up. So this is kind of a spoiler alert, okay? We are putting together a list of all labs I use for my own patients in the United States and for what I use them, okay? So you know that for CBC biochemistry, I use University of Georgia, but what do I use for chlamydia panel? What lab do I use for lead and zinc? What lab do I use for vitamin D panel? What lab do I use to analyze bladder stones? We are coming up with a list. So if you are a VETAHEAD Essential member, you're gonna have access to that list. And that list is gonna come with links. So you're gonna click there. It's gonna have a link to take you directly to the lab, to the webpage of the lab, and also directly to their form. So every time you send a sample to them, you need to fill up a form. So it's gonna take you directly to that form as well. Because guess what? It can be a hassle to find them, guys. I don't know why labs like to complicate our lives, but some of them can be really hard to find. So we're putting it together, compiling all this information for you. We make no money with these labs, but we want to facilitate your life. But that's going to be for our VETAHEAD Essential members only, coming very soon, a perk. And if you want to become a VETAHEAD Essential member, the link is on the bio. Click there. Become an essential member. You have access to all our online courses, all of them, our online professional ZooMed training courses or exotic animal medicine. You have access to our emergency calculators, to all our ebooks, illustrations, and things like the lab list that is coming very soon. Thank you so much, guys, for it, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.